Right, so you've got your brand new motorhome on your drive, or if you've been able to, you're out on your first campsite, you've had the handover, so I'm sure you understood everything that went on in the handover and you remember where everything is and you've checked everything works, and well, that never works, does it? It never works out.
There's a lot to take in.
There's an awful lot to take in, so what we're suggesting is that you, if you can and you've got it on your drive, is actually just try it out for a night, because try and use the things that you're going to use when you're actually in your motorhome. So I'm going to start with the table, I suppose.
Yeah.
Should we get the table out? Come on, Posh, you stay there. We'll get the table out. Need to remember where the table was. Ours is in the washroom, and it's in this cupboard here. So to get it out, 2 clips. It's a little bit fiddly. Lift it up. It only just sort of fits out in into that hole. Right.
Let's
put the
I'm
table
going to go
up.
backwards now.
You're going backwards. Yeah. So we've got a freestanding, what's called a freestanding table. We'll use the technical term.
Yes.
And so what it's got is like clips here, and you just sort of clip them in place like that, and it's a bit of manoeuvring, especially when someone's filming you, and then you can put it down. So that's a freestanding table. So you might have a table that's got a central leg that fits in the floor. You might want to figure out where the table column is and where the table top is, or you might have a table that folds out. It might have a folding mechanism. So that's what I'm going to do in the rest of the video, is we're just going to go through the things that you might need to find out. Obviously they're going to be different on your motorhome. So let's have a look at the next thing. So you want to cook your first meal. You've got the table out now and you want to cook a meal. So you've got a wonderful cooker. So you've got electric hob, 3 gas burners, you might have a grill, and you might have an oven. You might even have a microwave. Now if you're plugged into electric, you can use the electric hob if you've got one of these, but if you want to use one of these you need to make sure the gas is switched on. Yeah, so you also want to figure out which key to use, I suppose. I'm always told with these keys it's left loosey and right tighty, so turn it to the left. This one is quite heavy. You've got the gas bottles in here. So to switch it on, you turn this anti-clockwise, this bit here, and there's a button here you have to press and hold for a few seconds, and that is an anti-rupture valve, that one there. So you have that, and this is the pipe that feeds into your gas regulator and obviously into the rest of the system, and the other spare bottle is there. This device here will shut the gas off in case you have an accident, so it's sort of a little device in there that cuts off if it detects a bump, and it cuts the gas off. What that does mean is that in theory you can use the gas whilst you're travelling. Now why would you want to do that? Well, you wouldn't want to run your fridge on gas while you're travelling, but you might want to have the heating on if you're in a particularly cold area. So you can do that as long as you've got a gas safe system, and that's a CS. I don't know if you can see it over there, but this is a mono control CS. There's also duo control, and what that means, that's got 2 pipes, so you can hook up 2 cylinders at once and it automatically changes over, but we've got a mono CS. So righty tighty, righty tighty. So now you've got your gas on, we can operate one of the hobs.
Don't we have to make sure we've got power so that works?
Yeah, so make sure you've got power.
Yeah.
So we know we've got power. Okay, we'll come on to that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute, okay. So I just...
You push it in and hold it.
There, with gas.
And you know you've got gas. You might find that your gas has been switched off internally as well, so let me show you where they are. So our gas shut-off valves, and you need to know where they are in this locker here. So you come in here and you'll see the down there. Yeah, so I've got one shut-off valve in there, and that one is for the fridge. That's the blue one for the fridge. The other ones are actually underneath here. So I've got a green one and a red one, and the green one is for the Hobs grill and oven, and the red one is for the water heater, which is this one. So it's useful to know where your gas shut-offs are, so if you do have a problem with any of these, then obviously you can shut them off quickly. So that's all good, isn't it, Poppy? You're following this so far. So we've checked our gas in, everything is on. The other thing you might want to find, might be quite useful, is the oven shelf. Right, so our oven shelf is up in this cupboard here. So
It's there, don't need to get it out.
Don't need to get it out,
it's
but
nicely wrapped and all that, so it doesn't rattle.
So it's nice to know where your oven shelf is before you start using the oven.
Yeah. Yes.
And the other thing you might want to find out is where your grill pan is. Ours is down there. I'm not going to get that out. Right, so the next thing is figuring out how your fridge works. And this is a Dometic Series 10, I think it is. It's quite a reasonable size fridge. It's not the biggest fridge there is, but quite a reasonable size. It has a freezer compartment. It's only a small freezer compartment. Some shelves here. The thing about this fridge, it's got a double door, and I always think this double door is really useful if you want to get a beer and you're in bed. Other than that,
it's a bit of a gimmick.
It is a bit of a gimmick. What you do have, however, are some controls on the fridge. On our van, we never touch these controls, but they're useful to know. That's the on-off. That's an alarm symbol. That tells you it's running on battery. That tells you it's running on gas, or 230 volts at the moment, and that tells you it automatically switches between those three, and that's the temperature setting.
Because not all fridges do automatically switch, do they?
No, so some fridges you have to turn a dial to set it on gas or battery, and to be honest, I found those a right pain.
Yeah, yes.
And it's easy to forget which setting you've got it on.
Yes.
Yeah. So you might notice that you've got two types of electrical sockets in your motor caravan. Actually nicely demonstrated here, because we've got a 12 volt socket there, and we've got a 230 volt main socket there. So the 12 volt appliances use a plug. It looks a bit like this, and it's, some people refer to these as cigarette lighter sockets. This one's got a more secure plug with a bit of a spring on it to stop it coming out. And that 12 volt socket there is powering this telly here, because this telly is a 12 volt telly. Now, one of the things you probably don't want to do with motorhomes is to use domestic appliances in your motorhome. Now, I'll come on to that in a minute. Things like the microwave run on 230 volt AC electrics. Things like the TV over here run on 12 volts. Most of the things that you've got in your van, lighting, 12 volts. These lights up here, 12 volts. I'll switch the lights on here. These lights are all 12 volts. You don't need 240 volts to operate these. All the lights in there, 12 volts. This fridge runs on 230 volts or gas, and you're going to say, does it run on 12 volts? It only runs on 12 volts when you're driving, when the engine's running, when the ignition's on. So just be aware of that. If you've got no 240 volts switched on, it will switch over to gas, or you'll manually switch it over to gas. So most motorhomes will come with a handbook. I know it's not in a male characteristic to actually read a handbook, but there is some useful information in there. So what have you got in there, Jenny, so I don't have to read the manual?
It's just telling me what typical appliances consume.
Yeah, so this is on 230 volts.
We've got 230 volts, it's got 12 volts.
Yeah.
And it's talking about
LPG
gas at the end. So we just talk about the the ones on 230
Yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah.
So the refrigerator uses 190 watts.
Yeah. So
Which
that will be if it's on electric. Yeah.
It's on electric, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Does it say how many amps?
Yes, it does. It says 0.8.
0.8. Okay. So that's not much, is it?
No.
Okay, carry on then.
Not much. The Truma Combi. We haven't got a Truma.
We haven't. No, we've got an Audi.
No. So our Audi heating. This got 3 settings. Hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it's got a 1 kilowatt, 2 kilowatt, and a
Yeah,
3 kilowatt.
Yeah. So it's just telling me 1050, 2010, and 3150.
So if I had the electric heating on 3000.
Those on 150. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. How many amps would I be using?
On that setter, you'd be using 13.7.
Wow.
That's something to bear in mind. Is on
Yeah.
most,
Okay.
even on
Yeah.
Caravan and Motorhome Club sites, it's 16. Isn't
16. So you'd be using a big proportion of your electricity allowance if you switch the Audi heating on full pelt.
it? Yeah.
I tend to leave it on 2 kilowatts when I'm on a campsite.
Then you're using 9.1.
Right. Okay.
So you're okay, even if you're on 10, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. The microwave.
Yeah.
Is quite staggering.
Yeah. So how much?
Microwave.
Yeah.
Is 1,270 watts.
Yeah.
Which is an almost staggering 5.5 amps.
So if I was to have the electric heating on and use the microwave,
yeah, you'll be on to
18 amps.
at least, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so something to bear in mind. Let's have a look at the control panel up here. Now, we've got a very handy panel here, it's a little touch screen. One of the useful things it tells you is about the power. So that tells you how much power you're using at the moment. So I'm using 0.4 amp, I think it says in the leisure battery. I've got all the lights on. If I look over here, it tells me how much AC current I'm using there. So if I was to whack the heating up, let's have a look, let's have a play with that. So if I go to heating, I've got the heating off at the moment. We're going to put it on electric. Press it once, press it twice, press it 3 times, and see that's come on. I'll have to step this up. There, the heating's come on. Let's go and have a look at the power now. That's using 7 amps. That's probably because the fridge is not on. 11 amps.
Yeah.
So even on a 16 amp supply, you can very quickly use. I'm probably going to switch that off because I'm probably going to trip my domestic supply there. Go back to the heating. Well, so you can see how quickly you could use up a lot of your supply on a campsite.
Something I didn't realise, and I suppose it's sort of obvious, is that vent we've got up there, the extractor fan, which we've got covered by a screen at the moment, but that only works on 12 volts.
Yeah.
It's a 12 volt one.
My point here is that a lot of the appliances that you've got in the motorhome can work off 12 volts or gas, so you don't necessarily need a plug-in all the time. What you need plug-in for is to recharge the batteries. We've got solar panel which you can also recharge the batteries, or if you're driving, that can recharge the batteries. Most things you can work on 12 volts.
Most things you can work on, yeah. I mean, you've got a
12 volts or gas.
12 volts or gas.
Yeah.
I just I didn't realise that the water tank frost element works on 12 volts.
Yeah.
So you've got that protection, haven't you?
That's right. So it's only really the microwave, I think, that you would miss. You think?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the heating will work off gas. I don't know if you saw that. It's got a gas symbol. It works off gas or electric, but that's electric to 30 volts or gas.
Yeah. It uses 12 volts, obviously, to get it working, doesn't it?
Okay. So give me some figures on the 12 volt electrics.
Well, the Audi heating takes 12 watts and 1 amp hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's talking about the grill.
Yeah.
So about it's 0 to 14.4 watts.
Okay.
0 to 1.2 amps.
Okay, so let's talk about 12 volt electrics then. Yeah, that's right. I showed you in part 1 where the vehicle battery was. In part 2, I'm going to show you where the leisure battery is. It's actually at the back here. And that's the leisure battery in its own little sort of box in here. Now I've only got one leisure battery in my motorhome, and it sits in this cupboard along with a load of other gear. On the roof I've got a solar panel. I've got a 100-watt solar panel. That solar panel is capable of charging the battery when it's a nice sunny day, unlike today. If I go back to the power on here, the solar panel is providing 0.1 of an amp. So that battery under there is a 100 amp hour battery, which means it can provide 100 amps for 1 hour. Just wanted to jump in here. It's probably getting a little bit technical, but we've got quite a basic setup. We've got a 100 amp hour battery and we've got a 100-watt solar panel, which is probably fine for 1 or 2 days where you're not on hookup. But if you are planning to spend a lot of time where you're not on hookup, then you probably want to look at upgrading your batteries, perhaps to 2 leisure batteries or to a couple more solar panels. So it's quite a useful thing to look at, is actually figuring out how much electricity your motorhome uses. So I think, just to summarise a little bit, when you're not on to 30 volt hookup, you can use most things, probably apart from the microwave.
Yeah.
Because you've got a solar panel to charge your batteries, you've got gas to run your fridge and your heating.
Yeah. 12 volt TVs. 12
volt TVs. So you don't need hookup all the time. But what you will find is when you're not on hookup is obviously these main sockets won't work. So don't go and try and plug in your toaster into that when you're not on hookup. Onwards. Other thing worth pointing out is you want to check that your dealer's left all the manuals. There's a whole bunch of manuals here.
This is quite a...
It's quite a chunky set of kits. So you will have the vehicle, so you will have the vehicle manual, you'll have the motorhome manual, you'll have manuals for the fridge, for the cooker, even CDs for the awnings. Don't know what we got that in there for.
So it can help us put it up.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, like it's a whole big manual for the heating system.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, check you've got all your manuals. Are you watching all this, Pops? Now, the next thing to cover are your fuses. So we've got a whole load of fuses here. These are the 12 volt fuses, and they're all numbered, and actually there's a green light that tells you when they're being in use. Over there you've actually got some information that tells you what all the fuses are. If you notice over there, it's got the mains protection as well. So the mains protection is here. Miniature circuit breaker 1, 2 and 3, which corresponds to the 230 volt sockets, the heating sockets and the fridge. So if your fridge doesn't work, you might just want to check that those are on. You've also got some residual current devices, which is this thing here, and that will trip if there's a fault in the electrics, so it's worth knowing where that is. Some lights up there, one that tells you the heating's on, one that tells you the charge is on, and there's a third one there, the red one, that tells you if you've got reverse polarity. Now reverse polarity can happen sometimes on continental sites where they reverse the mains, and there is a way of reversing the polarity with a little simple plug, and that's the system shut off. So you can shut the whole thing down simply by pressing that. I'm not going to do that because it will shut everything down and we'll go into the dark. So I tend to carry in this thing here spare bulbs and spare fuses, probably the more important. That just sits up that way. Always worth having some spare fuses, isn't it, Pops? Yeah. Right, so you might want to know how to fill up your water. First of all, find the water point, which is here. Make sure it is the water point and not the diesel.
blue cap, isn't it?
Yeah, blue cap there. That's it. Now you can just put a hose in there. I've got a little special adapter. It's called HEO Solution, and it allows you to use a normal hose lock type hose. Put that in there, turn it, and you don't have to stand there holding it. I can hear the water filling up. I have a setting for water, and that will tell me as the fresh water fills up. The other thing your dealer should have shown you is where the boiler drain valve is, which is this thing here. And when you're filling up, that needs to be in the down position, so you don't drain all the water that you just put in away. Yeah, so we've now got 25% fresh water. A tank in this van holds 90 litres, so it's round about 20 litres in there, so that'll do for now. So you've got water in your tank. I've got something like 20 litres in there. It's not a huge amount. What you now need to do is to get water to the taps. So back to the water controls, or back to the controls. What you need to do now is switch the pump on. And you hear the pump going. There's a load of air in this system because there's been no water in it. So what we need to do, first of all, is get the cold water. So set the cold water at that position, and then open this tap. And you can hear some of the water coming out. It will come out quite slowly at first, and there'll be air in the system. We'll check that tap. That's the other thing. Don't leave the plug in the plug hole. Well, you need to do the same in the shower as well. So we know cold water's coming through. Now we need to get the hot water coming through. So set the tap to the hot water position, and you will get that sort of noise for a while. You also get a bit of splashback as well. Now what's happening here is the boiler's actually filling up. So the boiler under here has to fill up. That takes about 7 litres.
Yeah, I was supposed to leave that.
And sometimes, yeah, it takes a bit longer. It's probably best to do it one tap at a time as well. Normally you're looking for the highest point. I think this tap is the highest point. I think it's higher than the bathroom taps.
Because I famously pulled that up too high, didn't I?
Well,
and shot the valve.
Yeah, you have got to watch this little thing here. There's a little filter on the tap. That actually can come off if you get too much air in there. So just do it gently.
Yeah.
We've got we've got the water that's in the boiler coming through at the moment. It won't be hot yet. In here, set it to the hot water position. That's that. And that's fine. Same with the shower, to the hot water position. So make sure you don't get yourself wet here. And you've just proved that the water system is working. Right, Poppy, so you've got your heating working, you've got your gas on, you've made yourself a meal, your water's working. Are you concentrating here? What you might want to do now is settle down for a nice bit of TV. So in this cupboard here, at the back, I've got a little TV booster system here. So first thing to do, switch it on. Now this one has got a red light on it. I don't know if you can see that, a red light on it. And the idea of the red light is it tells me when I've got a signal or not. I've also got one of these status aerials. And the idea of the status aerial is you undo that, you push it up, give it a little bit of a turn, and you turn that around until that red light goes green. I'm probably not going to do it here because you probably see I'm right next door to the house. There's no chance I'll ever get TV signal parked on the drive.
Good one anyway.
No. So once that's gone green, you can then use your telly. So if you remember, I said that these TVs can run on 12 volts. They've got a 12 volt socket there. You've got an aerial lead that comes round to the back of the telly there, and then all you need to do is switch it on. Yeah, this TV actually has, you have to check the red light's on there, and there's a switch under here somewhere. Remember where it is, and that switches the telly on or off. And once you've got the red light on there, you can then press the remote, and it takes a couple of seconds for that little light to go green. And you just really want to check that the TV comes on. Whoa, there we go. I doubt we'll have any, but oftentimes you need to tune the TV in when you're on site. And what you do on this one is, yeah, like it says, no signal or retune. Got an automatic tuning thing. You press that and hold it, and then it starts tuning. So this is a thing that you get used to doing regularly when you're on campsite. But every time you move location, you're probably in a different TV transmitter area, so you need to retune your TV every time you arrive somewhere. We did have a satellite system, which are great, and you can get satellite wherever you are, as long as you're not next to a tree or a building or a mountain.
Yeah.
What we tend to do these days is we tend to use Fire Stick and Chromecast. Don't tend to watch much terrestrial TV these days, even thinking whether I actually need that TV in there. And I've got in here, let's move the rubbish out of the way, in here I've got a little Chromecast there, which I've left, which funny enough runs off, has got a 12 volt a 230 volt adapter, but if you look, if you're lucky enough, you can actually run it off USB. The ironic thing really about running it on USB is I've got a USB socket over here, but no USB socket where the telly is. Probably it would be a little job, wouldn't it? Get a little USB socket over there. So after all that hard work, you're probably ready for bed. A good night's sleep is always important. Now, you might be lucky and you might have a fixed bed. We've got two fixed beds here. Move the cushions out of the way. And yeah, you've actually got these duvets, like little sleeping bags with a duvet on top, like a half sleeping bag. They are really good. I recommend those. Or you might have a make-up bed. You can make up a bed with the sofa at the front. And if you look at our back catalogue, you might find some videos where I try to make up beds, and it probably explains why we've got fixed beds. The other thing to mention at this stage is we did have a motorhome that had a drop-down bed. We took it home, got it on the drive, and we were doing all the things that we were just talking about, checking the water, checking the oil. Sorry, not checking the oil, checking the gas. And one thing about the last thing I checked was, oh, I'll show Jenny the drop-down bed. So electric drop-down bed, press the button, bed came down, oh look, and then you can put it up, press the button, click. So one thing to check if you've got a drop-down bed, and particularly if it's electric, does the drop-down bed work? So you've had a good night's sleep, and you might want to use the washroom. You might want to use the toilet. So I know I've covered this on a different another video, but using the toilet, you need to make sure you can use the toilet. So what you do with the toilet is there's a lever down here, and you push it that way. That opens the flap in the toilet. When you're finished, close it and check the flush works. And notice I flushed it with the lid down and then close the toilet. And also the other thing you mustn't do is open that with this open. Why shouldn't you do that?
Because if you've been driving, you might get some pressure build up in the toilet, is that right?
Yeah, and particularly if you changed altitude,
yeah,
pressure might build up in there. You open the flap with the toilet lid up. Not good.
Not good, no.
Yeah, so the other thing is you might want to wash, or you might want to shower. Switch the light on. Most motorhomes come with a shower these days. Most coach built motorhomes come with a shower, and you want to make sure that that works and you know how it works. So normally it's just a case of doing that. One thing that's important to mention is don't leave the shower running like you would at home. Because this shower will use quite a bit of water if you leave it permanently on. The idea, because you've only got 90 litres of water, you've not got a huge amount of water. The idea is wet yourself, soap yourself, rinse yourself off, and switching the water off in between. Try not to use a lot of water, because someone will be very unhappy if you use all the hot water. Now when you leave the site, you might want to empty the water. You don't really want to be travelling with a lot of water. I tend to travel with 25%, no more than 25% in the tank, because water weighs quite a bit. A full tank of 90 litres is going to weigh around about 90 kilograms. So to empty the water on this van is press this button, confirm, and that empties the fresh water. And the noise you heard was the valve opening. It's going down into our drain. So make sure you know how to empty the water. And the other thing you want to do is to drain the boiler. I'm going back to this that we found earlier, this little tap. That lets the water out of the boiler. Well, you want to make sure now you haven't got the pump on anymore. Open the taps in the middle position, hot between hot and cold. At there, and that lets the water drain back. Same in here. And so that's it for looking around the caravan part of the motorhome, or the home part of the motorhome.
Yep.
And I hope you found it useful. If you did, give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe. If you've got any questions, leave a comment below. I'll try and answer them, or you'll try and answer them, I think.
No, you would. Yeah. So what are you going to do in part 3?
Part 3, we're going to actually look at sort of driving, being on the road, basically.
Right. Okay.
And what differences you might find being in a motorhome as opposed to being in a car.
And sort of good lessons like don't go down anywhere too narrow.
Well, yeah, we'll try and we've done that. So yes, yeah, so yeah. All of those sort of tips.
Yeah.
Okay. So stick with us, and we'll catch up with you soon. Bye then.
Bye then.
I think I want to jump in here. I was watching the editing, and I thought it's all getting a little bit technical here. Solar panel, which would probably take about 8 hours to recharge a 50%. Getting complicated again, aren't we? God.